don't have to tell a man he craves war. I can tell by the set of his jaw, the glare in his eyes. So when Sven Larson raised this huge frame on his bunk and accused me of swiping his tobacco, I know very well what his ID was. But I didn't want to fight Sven, having licked the big cheese 3 or 4 times already. I see no need mauling him anymore, so somewhat to the surprise of the rest of the crew, I said, Sven, that's pretty crude. You didn't need to think up no lie to pick a fight with me. I know you crave to be the champion of the Sea Girl, but they ain't a chance, and I don't want to hurt you. I got no further because with the bull's belly, he heaved himself off his bunk and came for me like a wild man. Gosh, what a familiar scene that was. The fierce, hard faces ringing us, the rough bunks along the wall, the dim light of the lantern swinging overhead, and me standing in the middle, barefooted and stripped to the waist, holding my own title against all comers. They ain't an inch of the forecastle of the floor that I ain't reddened with my blood. They ain't an edge of an upper bunk that I ain't had my head smashed against. And since I've been a man grown, they ain't a sailor on the 7 seas that can say he stood up to me in the forecastle and beat me down.
Me and the old man had a most violent row whilst the Sea Girl was tied up on the docks of a small seaport on the west coast. Somebody put a polecat in the old man's bunk, and he accused me of doing it. I denied it indignantly and asked him where he reckoned I would get a polecat, and he said, well, it was a cinch somebody had got a polecat because there it was. And it was his opinion that I was the only man of the crew which was low down enough to do a trick like that. This irritated me, and I told him he ought to know it wasn't me because I had a reputation of being kind to animals, and I wouldn't put a decent skunk where it would have to associate with a critter like the old man. This made him so mad that he busted a bottle of good rye whiskey over my head. Annoyed at such a wanton waste of good liquor, I grabbed the old walrus and soused him in a horse trough, us being on the docks at the time.
Following the left I landed, Slade tied me up in a clinch, stamped on my instep, thumbed me in the eye, and swished a right to my chin on the breakaway. Slightly infuriated at this treatment, I curled my lip back and sank a left to the wrist and his midriff. He showed no signs at all of liking this and retaliated with a left to the body and a right to the side of the head, and then he settled down to work.
Like I was looking through a thick fog, I seen Bill, dazed and white-faced, counting over me. I don't know how I got up. Again, I was sick. I thought I was dying, but Sven was standing right over me and looking up at him. A lot of thoughts surged through my numbed and battered brain in a kind of flash. The new champion of the Sea Girl, I thought. After all these years, I've held my title against all comers. After all the men I've fought and licked to hold my only title I got, all the cruel punishment I've took, all the blood I've spilled. Now I lose my only title to this squarehead that I've looked half a dozen times. Like a dream, it all came back. The dim-lighted, smelly, dingy forecastle, the yelling, cursing seaman, and me in the middle of it all, the bully of the forecastle. And now, never no more to defend my title. Never to hear folks along the dock say, that's Steve Kosky, champ of the toughest ship afloat.
At the gong, I was still dizzy and bleeding copiously, but that's an old story to me. Cairn, infuriated at not having finished me, rushed out of his corner and throwed over a terrible right, which I seen coming like a cannonball and ducked. His arm looped over my shoulder, and his shoulder rammed into my neck with such force that we both crashed to the canvas. Cairn untangled himself with a snarl of irritation, and assisted by the fair-minded referee, arose, casually kicking me in the face as he done so. I arose likewise, and enraged by my constant position on the canvas, looped a whistling left at his head that would have undoubtedly decapitated him hadst it landed, but luck was against me as usual. My foot slipped in a smear of my own blood. My swing was wild, and I run smack into his ripping right. I fell into Cairn, ignoring an uppercut which loosened all of my lower teeth and tied him up. "Let go, you tin-eared baboon," he snarled, heaving and straining. "Try to show me up, would you? Try to make a monkey out of me, would you?" "Nature's already attended to that, you lily-fingered tap dancer," I croaked. "A flapper with a powder puff couldst do more damage than you can with them chalk-knuckled brisket hooks."
I'm boxing. My opponent leads with his right. I parry with my left and counter with my right. That's not correct. I should have stopped the punch with my right and countered with my left. Why did my instinct not tell me the correct form? More, why did instinct not tell my opponent to lead with his left, which is also the correct form?
I remember I was boxing with a fellow who was fast, clever, and a hell of a puncher. But he could not take it much, see? I walked into him and we traded straight lefts and rights to the body and face, him boxing clever and me simply slugging my way in close. At last, he getting weary from slamming me on the jaw, I rushed him into the rope, hooked the left up to his solar plexus and brought it up to his chin. He slumped forward, and another left hook and a right hook bounced him back onto the ropes, and he dropped his hands.
I duck, guard, jab, parry, and spar mechanically, and one might say instinctively, but it is not that. It is the act of trained muscle rather than trained mind, and mind and muscle do not work in unison. But the instincts imparted to the mind in this life will go down the ages, and 1,000 years from now, I, clothed in another form, may hear the cheering crowd acclaim my name, the name of a new champion.
Not long ago, some friends were discussing that all-potent factor so much employed by the Knights of the Squared Circle, known as the punch, the swat, the slam, and other equally vigorous cognomens. And we're arguing as to the efficiency of the respective punch of Messrs. Dempsey and Mayer. All of which brings to mind the fact that popular opinion to the contrary, there is a vast difference in the blows of men of even equal weight and strength.
What freak of nature makes an Iron Man? We know that the human skull is well built to withstand violence, and that the body muscles may be developed into a steel-like toughness. But this alone will not explain that strange and incredible mortal, known to the ring and its followers as an Iron Man.
Here's my opinion of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Boxing reached its height between 1892 and 1905. That was the ring's golden era, the culmination of perfection, the pinnacle of achievement. The greatest heavyweight of all time was James J. Jeffries. Records prove that. During his reign, there flourished the greatest collection of heavyweights ever seen, and he was the greatest of all.
If you want to study human nature in the raw, go to the ringside. Not that I was studying it much that night. I vaguely remember standing up in a slightly red haze and bellowing for Kitchen to hang Burns' guts on the ring ropes and smear his brains over the canvas, while some fellow beside me was urging Burns to do the same thing to Kitchen. Neither of us had ever seen either one of them before. I never saw a fiercer fight nor a greater exhibition of stamina and ruggedness. After 10 savage rounds, they went to their corners. Burns ironically offered his hand to Kitchen as they passed each other, and Kitchen struck it aside. The referee, Kid Dula, once a fighter himself and the greatest middleweight Texas ever produced, after consulting the judge's slips, called them to the center of the ring again and lifted both their hands in token that the fight was a draw. A good decision. Instantly, they jerked their hands away and began slugging like hell. Dula stopped several clouts as he endeavored to separate them. He could only hold one at a time, and while he was holding one, the other was enthusiastically knocking the hell out of the fellow who was helpless. Officers and others stormed into the ring, grabbed the maddened fighters, threw them, and sat on them.
Life reminds me of a fight I had when a kid with a heavyweight prize fighter. Round after round, I rushed savagely and futilely. Mad to come to grips and smash his ribs in, but hitting only the naked air. It was like fighting a shadow that wielded clubs. At the end of the fight, I was swaying on the ropes, groggy and dizzy, with my nose broken and my face cut and bruised, sick with a feeling of utterly helpless futility. That's life. It's full of things that punish you fiercely and that you can't come to grips with. Punishment isn't so bad if you're handing it out at the same time. The other fellow may be strangling the life out of you or ripping your ears off with his teeth, but if you're driving your knee to his groin, sinking your fist in his belly, or have your thumb in his eye, you can stand the punishment. The hell of it comes when you're up against a battler you can't hit, or are licked and down in the muck with the other fellow stamping your guts out or grinding your face in with his hobnails. That's life. Fighting shadows, taking lickings that you can't return.
Yet when I look for the peak of my exaltation, I find it on a sweltering, breathless midnight when I fought a black-headed tiger of an Oklahoma drifter in an abandoned ice vault, in a stifling atmosphere laden with tobacco smoke and the reek of sweat and rot-gut whiskey and blood, with a gang of cursing, blaspheming, oil-filled roughnecks for an audience. Even now the memory of the battle stirs the sluggish blood in my fat-laden tissues. There was nothing at all calculated to advance art, science, or anything else. It was a bloody, merciless, brutal brawl. We fought for fully an hour until neither one of us could fight any longer, and we reeled against each other, gasping incoherent curses through battered lips. No, there was nothing stimulating to the mental life of man about it. There was not even an excuse for it. We were fighting not because there was any quarrel between us, but simply to see who was the best man. Yet I repeat that I get more pleasure out of remembering that battle than I could possibly get out of contemplating the greatest work of art ever accomplished, or seeing the greatest drama ever enacted, or hearing the greatest song ever sung.
Sailor Steve Costigan.
Kid Allison.
Robert E. Howard.
Robert E. Howard.
Robert E. Howard.
I am boxing.
Welcome to Fists of the Ice House, ladies and gentlemen. The annual and seemingly interminable panel here at Howard Days. designed to inexplicably explain to all of you who don't need to know anything more about this, because it's all we ever talk about, why this is so cool to us. But even though that some of you are newcomers here and don't know maybe all of the nuances, we're going to save that for later at the pavilion while we're drinking. My name is Mark Finn. With me are my good friends and partners in crime, Chris Gruber and Jeff Shanks. Thank you. We're the current Three Musketeers of boxing in the Howard universe, and we're going to do something a little different this year, because we always end up standing here for you guys, reading our favorite excerpts and talking about the thing that we like the best. I thought it would be kind of fun if instead, in keeping with the spirit of the Ice House and the good-natured camaraderie and combativeness that comes with it, if we did a challenge edition of Fists of the Ice House. This is where you, the audience members, get to shout out or politely let us know what you would like us to read, and maybe in some sort of if there's a style component, we'll talk about that as well. But if there's something that you'd like to hear us do, whether it's Sailor Steve Costigan, one of the Kid Allisons, one of the serious boxing stories,
Dorgan McGlory.
Yes, Dorgan McGlory. We've got 4 volumes of fight stories to work with, so we're happy to accommodate. And so if there's anybody that has something that they'd like to hear, and if it's a favorite that we do every time, that's fine too, but we thought we'd open it up and see if we can't get some interesting combinations.
Boxing poetry.
Hey,
We got that too?
you know what?
You want to do some boxing
All
poetry?
right. Hey, you know what? Let's do this. How about Kid Levine is Dead? Read from the Ring magazine where it was originally published in 1928.
I like it.
Can I get a witness? It just so happens we
It
have
just so happens.
the original issue of the Ring magazine.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I just want to say that Indy was not a plant.
Yeah, swing that this way.
There you go.
Here, hold still. Okay, I was not a plan on any of this, but it's kind of a lead-in because after we get done here and we go back to the pavilion, we're going to be doing some extended reading of Howard, and if you've got some H.G. Lovecraft poetry reading off the front porch of Robert Howard's house. You're all invited to come around, get a chair, or just come around to the pavilion and hear some poetry being read and read some poetry tonight.
Nice plug. Jeff, step back. You're
Ooh, anything up there? All right, so just a little word of explanation. Actually, Chris, you want to tell them about the Ring magazine here while I'm looking it up?
The Ring magazine, one of the foremost voices in boxing at the beginning of the last century, following the heels of National Police Gazette and other periodicals like that. The Ring magazine actually this is one of 2 things that Howard submitted to the Ring magazine. It's a Bible of boxing. They actually helped legitimize the sport after more than just decades, actually, probably hundreds of years of up and down morality problems. So the Ring magazine, it gave an opportunity for the common man expression of sorts in a new age. So we had moved from an agricultural country to an industrial one. We had a little bit more free time and leisure, and people started talking more and more about who was the best at boxing, football, baseball, sports in general. So water cooler talk, and this took water cooler talk and gave it to the masses, and Howard took advantage of it.
And how about Kid Levine?
Kid Levine, lightweight boxing Hall of Fame champion. Kid Levine, actually, should I tell the?
A little bit, yeah, go ahead.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead, do it real
Kid
quick.
Levine ended
Real
up
fast.
dying from. Well, I won't. Actually, you know what? I don't want to give that away. Go ahead and.
All right.
I think it's actually in the.
Okay, all right. So this is Kid Levine is Dead by Robert E. Howard, 1928. Hang up the battered gloves. Levine is dead. Bold and erect, he went into the dark. The crown is withered and the crowds are fled. The empty ring stands bare and lone. Yet hark! The ghostly roar of many a phantom throng floats down the dusty years, forgotten long. Hot blaze the lights above the crimson ring, where there he reigned in his full prime, a king. The throng's acclaim roared up beneath their sheen. and whispered down the night, Levine, Levine. Red splashed the blood and fierce the crashing blows. Men staggered to the mat and reeling rose. Crowns glittered there in splendor, won or lost, and bones were shattered as the sledges crossed. Swift as a leopard, strong and fiercely lean, champions knew the prowess of Levine. The giant dwarf, Joel Wolcott, saw him loom, and broken, bloody, reeled before his doom. Handler and Everhart and rugged Burge saw the last his snarling face emerge. From bloody mist that veiled their dimming sight, ere they sank down into unlighted night. Strong men and bold lay vanquished at his feet. Mighty was he in triumph and defeat. Far fade the echoes of the ringside's cheers, and all is lost in the mist of dust-dead years. Cold breaks the dawn, the east is ghastly red. Hung up the broken gloves, Levine is dead. I'm sorry, that was really tiny print and in italics. It's almost impossible to read, but there you go. From the Ring magazine, 1928.
Any more poems? I've got John L. Sullivan, a poem to John L. Sullivan, and a poem to Dempsey queued up here. If you like to hear.
Do the Sullivan poem.
Sullivan, is it okay with y'all? All right. I'm very partial to John L. Sullivan. In the third volume of Fists of Iron, I built it off of the research that Finnan had done in finding some continuity between boxers in his list of greatest heavyweights of all time and characteristics of Costigan, namely Sharkey. Sullivan seemed to have the voice, though, and the culture behind him that seemed to wed itself really nicely with what you found. Nevertheless, the more I dug, the more I found an interest in almost a hero worship of the, not so much John L. Sullivan the man, but John L. Sullivan the myth. And that was pretty much par for the course in America, especially about 20 to 30 years after he retired.
Oh yeah.
So this is titled simply, John L. Sullivan. Bellowing, blustering old John L., fearing nothing between sky and hell. Rushing and roaring, swinging with his right, smashing, crashing, forcing the fight, battering foes until they fell. Tilt your glasses to old John L. Mitchell he knocked out from the ring, clear out, dropped Kilrain with a single clout. Laughlin he beat and Burke he flayed, knocked out the Maori giant Slade, packed in each fist damnation and hell. Tilt your glasses to old John L. Old John L's in town today. He's hitting it down the Great White Way. Look at his swallowtail coat, silk hat. Mustache too, say he's on the bat. Living it in, that you can tell. Tilt your glasses to old John L. He's cleaned out the roughest, toughest saloon. He's licked O'Rourke and Jim McClune, sampled every saloon on the streets, buying drinks for all he meets. He's taken the Bowery in pell-mell. Tilt your glasses to old John L. Sticking your head in that grog shop door. Look at him, listen to him roar. Set out the whiskey, Jimmy, you bum. Billy the bar, you half-breed scum. I can lick any guy from here to hell. Tilt your glasses to old John L. The world moves on, and the ring moves too. Old fighters have long given way to new. But here's a health to the olden days, to the wild, old, mad, old, bad old ways, when a fight was a fight and not a sell. With me? And tilt your glasses to old John L.
Yes, that's good. We should. That needs to be. We need to take that back to the pavilion later.
I think so.
With beverages.
With John L. Sullivan Irish whiskey, perhaps.
The Dempsey poem as Muhammad Ali. Oh, jeez. That's definitely.
You asked for a challenge. Here we go.
Oh no, I can get to it.
Okay. It's fine.
Give me just a second to cue it up. I was just there. All right. Can't believe you're going to make me do this.
Why not? It's right after Sullivan.
Yeah.
You asked for it.
I did. I did.
Right there.
Yeah. Through the California mountains into many a wooded vale, a wind from seaward whispers the name of the nonpareil. O'er many a peak snow-covered, o'er many a woodland fair, the sea breeze murmurs the wonderful tale of the lad from County Clare. But never the wind from seaward and never the brooks of the vale can speak half of the glory, the dew of nonpareil. Champion of all champions, greatest in all times bounds. The lad who held Fitzsimmons for 13 gory rounds. But the ring's red history passes in a swiftly roving tale, and there's a few who now remember the name of the nonpareil. But here's to the greatest of fighters, to a name that shall not fail. The name of the first Jack Dempsey, the wonderful nonpareil. Up next on the internet, Mark Finn crucified by millennials. Lovely. Can't wait to see that.
That's a different Jack Dempsey, too, that he's talking about. He's not talking about the much more well-known heavyweight fighter in the 1920s, Jack Dempsey, the Manasseh Mauler. This was the original Jack Dempsey. That's why one of the things that you hear in those two poems there is Howard's boxing acumen, especially the historical side, just right on.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the little things that back then were taken for granted. Everyone knew these gentlemen. Cultural icons, and he manages to insert all that knowledge and fun into his poems. Really good stuff.
Yes. So now you see how this goes. Do we have any other takers? Anybody want to shout out something?
What about the Iron Man?
What? Okay. You want to hear something from the Iron Man? Name your combatant. Which one of us?
Let's see what we can find here.
I'll make Jeff do it.
All right, I'm on it. Let me find it. Hang on. Now I'm scrolling.
Volume 1.
Should be 1.
Yeah, I'm in 1, I think. All right, where are you?
Technology.
All right. Still scrolling.
Should have spelled books.
Should have PDFs instead of just, ebook instead of just a PDF. All right, come on.
That's another debate.
Yeah. All right, come on. Where are you?
About a third
Oh
of the way
yeah,
in.
search function. What am I doing?
About a third of the way
Because the phrase Iron Man shouldn't appear too many times in.
How hard can it be to find that, right?
Well, it's Iron Man.
That's true. Good.
So
point.
you'll be able
Yes.
to
There
find
you go. All right, come on.
So
All right, come on.
he's searching.
While he's searching, why don't you
I
talk
got
about here? Pass it on.
I got it.
Why don't you tell me real quick about the ice house itself?
Yeah,
Since we got a lot of new people here.
That's right.
We haven't really talked about this place yet, and then I'll launch in.
The ice house here was, in fact, an actual ice house. It's not what we think of now as the modern ice house, which is where you can get burgers and terrible French fries. Back at the turn of the century, one of the newest technologies was refrigeration. And so as they learned how to make ice, they put it quickly into one of these ice houses. This was a hallmark of civilization. If you were playing Sid Meier's Civilization 1901, the ice house would be like a second tier advancement right next to the railroad, because they could take these big blocks of ice, put them in the cattle cars, and the meat could go all the way down the line without becoming rancid. So as soon as Prohibition came about, because of the coldness, people were usually brewing beer at the back of the ice house as well. When Prohibition happened, they just simply took the barrels and conveniently moved them where no one could see them. And they became unofficial speakeasies in Texas. One of the common ways that you could get a drink in Prohibition, Texas, was to go to the ice house.
I'll take a $5 bag of ice.
Yes, a $5 bag of ice. They'd give you a little bag of ice with a 6-pack of beer in it. And in 1920s, a $5 bag of ice is pretty expensive, but that was how you got your beer. And so because of where it was, next to the railroad track, because there was beer here, the Roughnecks would gather after work and hang out, take their shirt off, swap a few lies, and if anybody was feeling up to it, do a challenge grudge match. Hey, I bet I can lick you, you son of a bitch. The hell you can. And now everybody's betting, the beer is flowing. This is where Robert E. Howard used to hang out when he was doing his physical exercise, building himself up. And this became a very important place for him. It was a place for him to come and be one of the guys. He didn't have the job that they had. And so, he was clerking in a store at a time, he was working at the drugstore, but that wasn't the same as being a tool dresser. And so it was very important to him to be able to come here with his friends who were in rough and tumble trades and drink and be a guy and hang out and amateur box, and he was quite good at it. And so we don't have any textual evidence that any of the things that happened here made it into the stories, but there's kind of a sense of how could it not, because of the boxing acumen, as he said earlier, was so specific. Howard knew how to fight. He knew how to describe a fight because he knew how to throw a punch. All that stuff wound up in the stories, and the Ice House was a very, I think, crucial to Howard's development, both just for his mental health as well as his writing career, because those boxing stories came along at a time when he needed them the most. This is one of his serious boxing stories. He wrote most of them funny, but he had a few serious ones. This is a fairly epic piece.
All right, so just briefly, the protagonist of the story is a man named Iron Mike Brennan, and he's an Iron Man. This was a theme that Howard used and talked about quite a bit. These were the kind of fighters that he liked. Iron Men were guys that could take punishment. They could take a beating. I think Howard himself kind of saw himself as an Iron Man when he describes his own style of fighting. You could take a beating, and no matter what, and you never gave up, and you never quit. You had a solid chin. You never got knocked out, and that's the protagonist of the story, Iron Mike Brennan. And the idea behind the story is he's had too many fights. He really, that's the problem with an Iron Man. Maybe you don't get knocked out, but you take a lot of damage over the years. And in this story, it's basically the idea is one last fight that he's got to last, he's got to survive. And his opponent in this fight that I'm going to read here is actually Iron Mike Costigan. And that name is not a coincidence. Iron Mike Costigan is the brother of Sailor Steve Costigan. He's a little bit more talented than Sailor Steve, shall we say? But and so that's an interesting thing. This shows you that Howard was actually creating sort of a shared universe with his boxing characters, just like he was doing with his weird fiction, and having shared universes with Call and Conan and Graham McMorran. All right. So let's see. The two Iron Mikes had met in the center of the ring. Costigan might have been slightly awed by the fame of the man he faced. At any rate, he hesitated. Brennan walked toward his foe, but his feet dragged. Then Costigan suddenly launched an attack and shot a straight left to Brennan's face. As if the blow had roused him to his full tigerish fury, Mike went into action. The old sweeping haymakers began to thunder with all their ancient power. Costigan had, of course, no defense. A sweeping left-hander crashed under his heart with a sound like a caulking mallet striking a ship's side. A blasting right that whistled through the air, cannonballed against his jaw. Costigan went down as though struck by a thunderbolt. Then, even as the crowd rose, he reeled up again. But I was watching Brennan. As though that sudden burst of action had taken all the strength out of him, he sagged against the ropes, limp, cloudy-eyed. Now sensing that his foe was up, he dragged himself forward with halting and uncertain motions. Costigan, still dizzy from that terrific knockdown, was conscious of only one urge, the old instinct of the Iron Man. Bore in and hit until somebody falls. Now he crashed through Brennan's groping arms and shot a right hook to the chin. Brennan swayed and fell, just as a drunken man falls when a prop against which he's been leaning is removed. Over his motionless form, the referee was counting 8, 9, 10, and the career of Iron Mike Brennan was at an end. A stunned silence reigned, and Iron Mike Costigan, new king of all Iron Men, leaned dazedly against the ropes, unable to believe his own senses. Mike Brennan had been knocked out. That's probably a good place.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, very good.
What makes that scene particularly poignant is it's a novella. It's a long story, and those two Iron Men were at that time they were vying for the unofficial title of Iron Man.
Who was the top Iron Man?
And the way Howard builds it up, it's almost chapter after chapter of him descending on other Iron Men and battling them down through sheer force of will. A core of iron. Everything with Howard's Iron Men starts from within and exudes outward. Strength, fortitude, bravery, and the ability to take it.
Yeah.
And so when these two meet, it's a pretty big deal in the story. And there's a little extra to it, which I won't give away. You should read.
Yeah.
But the fact is, when he says the silence descended, no one thought Brendan was ever gonna
get knocked out. Right.
Which echoes many of the real life boxers who held the title of Iron Man.
Right.
Battling Nelson, for instance.
Battling Nelson's a great example.
Yikes, what's his name? With all the losses, but he never got knocked
Joe
out.
Grimm.
Joe Grimm, thank you.
Yeah.
Joe Grimm was sort of the ultimate Iron Man.
Little guy too.
Yeah, and had at the end of his career had more losses than wins, but was famous for always going the distance, always put on a great show.
Who's sort of Jack Johnson, the heavyweight champion of the world.
Right.
A few people considered one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He had a crack at Joe Grimm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't knock him out.
Like all the rest, could not knock him out. He made his living by being a human punching bag.
Right. Okay, so anything else?
Anything else?
We're at the halfway point here. If you've got something you want to hear, now is your chance.
The magazine's getting kind of blown by the wind.
Oh my God.
I want to turn it the other way. Or
Okay, so
something. Yeah, you will.
I don't hear too much. How about I get it rolling a little bit? We looked at the Howard House today. Everybody probably took a tour, right? Do you see that Galahad book just prominently displayed? All right, well, about the same time, Howard had written a story called Kid Galahad, and it's about Kid Allison. It's the other series boxer. You want to hear a little bit of that? I'll give you a little bit of background. I like it. It's pretty funny. Basically, what we have here is, like Sailor Steve Koskin, who had recurring characters, people that supported Koskin throughout his adventures, Howard was trying to create the same kind of thing, but in a different way. So he had all his seconds. So he had his manager, his trainer, his seconds, like my son's being my second tonight. And these people, recur throughout the story. Nevertheless, what ends up happening is, Kid Allison, where we're at is, he's starting to go a little stale. His manager doesn't want Kid Allison to do something crazy in his absence, which is really the basis of all the published Kid Allison stories.
Yes.
Jack Reynolds, the manager, takes off. Kid Allison gets into trouble, and he finds out that he's a better boxer than Thinker. And Jack Reynolds comes in, and helps him sort it all out. Nevertheless, so in this case, he's trying to secure a big fight for Kid Allison on the East Coast, Kid Allison being a big-time boxer on the West Coast. And this chance to really break into the New York scene, the New England scene, where boxing was probably a little bit bigger. So he's gone, and Kid Allison gets into a little trouble. So I'll start right there. He's stewing. He just can't sit still. This is a light heavyweight boxer with a tremendous amount of talent, unlike Steve Koskin, who relies almost all on guts and not so much ability, but guts. Allison, a little bit different. Jack told me to do as little as possible of anything while he was gone. Not to get no rose of no sword, and not to sign no papers, and not to answer no incriminating questions. He departed with the cheerful and flattering remark that he fully expected to find me in jail when he got back. My manager's inexcusable attitude irritated me. I reckon I can take care of myself. But after seeking in vain to amuse myself in various ways, Abe suggested I go over to the public library and enlighten myself. Well, that was all right. I ain't one of those mutts to which books is just so much waste material taking up space. But the catch was that Abe insisted on going with me and picking out the books for me to read. Well, I wanted a book about pirates and Indians and things, but he got one which he said would help improve my general manners. And just for the sake of peace, I glanced over it. Well, I got real interested. It was about folks called knights, which flourished many centuries ago, long before the Civil War even. These birds wore fighting togs made out of battleship steel with washpots on their heads, and spent all their time rescuing fainting damsels, whatever them is, and sacking dragons and things over the beam with meat cleavers. Well, there was a knight named Galahad, which was the champion of them all. He barred nobody. He met all contestants, from flyweights to super heavies, and they all took the count. None of them went the limit with him. The way that boy could handle his dukes was a caution. But the main thing that interested me was this. He was an amateur. What I mean is, he never hedged for the gate receipts. If somebody had offered him a big purse with the movie rights, he'd have probably felt insulted. He cared nothing at all about the guilt. He spent all his time chasing hither and yon, looking for some girl which was getting a raw deal. The minute he heard a skirt howling for a cop, he bounced in and took a hand. Zip, zim, zam! Another one-round KO for Sir Galahad, and he took the frail back to her folks, made a courtly bow, and galloped away on his milk-white steed in search of more hero business. Well, I got all steamed up over this job, and when I put the book down with a deep sigh and strode forth into the streets, I felt as noble as all get out. I was a fighting man too, and I thought, had I lived in them times, I bet I'd made a I made him step up to hold his title. So, and what ends up happening afterwards is he goes looking for people to help, and that help, and the things he has to do to be good, well, it kind of stretches the definition of a hero.
Yeah, to say the least.
So do we have anybody want to? Ace Jessel.
All right.
Oh my goodness.
My.
Choose again, please.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'll do. We can.
Volume 1.
We'll do Ace Jessel. I don't know if I can do Mike Tyson. Let's see.
Can I give it a lisp? Sure you can. Sure you can.
That's my spirit.
He's got such a crazy voice. I don't know if I can do it.
There we go.
No, you guys are assholes.
I say yes.
You're saying you're not up to it.
Thank you.
Challenge. Now we're talking.
Someone knows us.
Yeah, we're talking.
Okay.
Somebody knows us.
All right. Let's see.
Be careful, Mike will make you his bitch.
I want to do. I'll have to do double cross.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't do Tom Mullen.
Yeah, because there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
Much in Molyneux. You gotta do double cross.
It's the manager's point.
Yeah.
You know what? This is probably not good for the general crowd. Let's try something different.
Yeah.
This is not gonna. This will not have the comedic effect you want it to have. I promise. Night in Shanghai. Yeah, that's doable. That's doable.
Do you still want it in Mike Tyson's voice? We have a rough crowd now all of a sudden, yeah. Fight it out amongst yourselves and we'll see who is the winner.
Let's see. That's volume 4, isn't it?
Yeah. Wait.
One Shanghai Night.
Got it?
Yeah.
Ace Jessel's an interesting character, though. He's I've always thought, who do you think Howard patterned him off?
I think he's a couple different people. I think there is. I know a lot of people don't. You know, Jack Johnson seems like the obvious one. I think there's some elements to him.
Yeah.
His background in a southern port town and those kind of things.
But he's
but I think there's
wasn't
Peter.
flashy.
No, I think there's Peter Jackson.
Peter
in
Jackson
there.
is who I think would be
Yeah.
the most. From the
But I think he is a combination of a couple of people.
So this is
a couple of kind of standard tropes.
Howard had written a few champions into his boxing characters, his main protagonist. But the only one that actually, I think, the only one that was actually published as a champion would be Ace Jessel. There were several that were on their way to the championship. He leaves the story. He leaves us knowing that the story is about essentially finished. These boxers are going to become champions. But Ace Jessel is actually the only, as far as I know, the only character who was published in his lifetime that was actually a champion. Can you think of somebody else? I mean, there's several others that didn't get published until we came along.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. It's actually
Ace
champion.
Jessel, which
Right.
is really interesting.
Right.
And Ace Jessel's first story was published in a Ghost magazine.
That's right. It's actually a weird boxing story. Howard was really adept at mixing genres early on. He had something of a practical reason for this. You can, if you write a boxing story and you add a weird or supernatural element to it, and you're not able to sell it to fight stories, well, maybe you can turn around and pitch it to Weird Tales and it'll still sell. So there was a practical reason to this, and in doing so, he was creating what we call hybrid genres. He created weird westerns because of this. He wanted to write westerns, but he was more comfortable writing horror stories, so he wrote a western with a horror element in it, and all of a sudden you've got the weird western, which now is a popular genre. Sword and Sorcery itself, he was writing historical adventure fiction crusader stories, threw in a weird element, all of a sudden you got Sword and Sorcery. So some of these mixed genres took off. Weird boxing, not so much. Not so much. But
it did help encourage him to keep writing in the boxing genre.
Yeah.
This is One Shanghai Night, and we're going to be reading from the reconstituted text, which is published in the 4-volume set. This is Mike Dorgan and Bill McGlory. And while Howard insists that the style of these is nothing like the Costigans, there are some similarities. The first man I met when I stepped off of my ship onto the wharfs of Shanghai was Bill McGlory, the Dutchman. And I should have took this as a bad omen because that gorilla could get into more jams than a Chinese puzzle. He says, "Well, Mike, what do we do for entertainment? Beat up some cops or start a free-for-all in a saloon?" I says, "Them amusements is low. The first thing I'm gonna do is go and sock Ace Barlow on the nose. When I was in port 6 months ago, somebody drugged my grog and lifted my wad, and I found out since that it was him." "Good," said Bill. "I don't like Ace neither, and I'll go along and see it's well done." So we went down to the Three Dragons Saloon, and Ace come out from behind the bar, grinning like a crocodile, and stuck out his hand and said, "Well, well, if it ain't Mike Dorgan and Bill McGlory, good to see you, Dorgan." "I'm glad to see you, you double-crossing polecat," I says, and socked him on the nose with a peach of a right. He crashed into the bar so hard he shook the walls, and a demijohn fell off a shelf onto his head and knocked him stiff. And I thought Bill McGlory would bust laughing. Big Bess, Ace's girl, give a howl like a steamboat whistle. "You villain," she squalled. "You've killed Ace! Get out of here, you murdering son of a skunk!" I don't know what kind of knife it was she flashed, but me and Bill left anyway. We wandered around on the waterfront most of the day and just about forgot about Ace when all of a sudden he hove into view again, most unexpectedly. We was bucking a roulette wheel in Yin Shang's Temple of Chance and naturally was losing everything we had, including our shirts, when somebody tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and it was Ace. I drawed back my right molar, but he said, "Nix, you numbskull, I want to talk business with you." His nose was skinned and both his eyes was black, which made him look very funny, and I said, "I bet you went and blowed your nose. You should never do that after being socked." "I ain't here to discuss my appearance," he said. Come on out where we can be heard, where we can talk without being overheard." "Followed you out into the alley?" I asked, "How many thugs you got out there with blackjacks?" At this moment, Bill lost his last dime and turned around and seen Ace, and he said, "Wasn't one bust on the snoot enough?" "Listen, you mugs," said Ace, waving his arms around like he does when he's excited. "Here I got a scheme for making us all a lot of dough, and you boneheads stand around making smart cracks. You ain't gonna fix it so we make dough, hey?" I snorted. "I may be dumb, Ace Barlow, but I ain't that dumb. You ain't no pal of ourn." "No, I ain't," he howled. "I despises you. I wished you was both in Davy Jones' locker, but I never let sentiment interfere with business. And you two saps are the only men in Shanghai which has got enough guts for the job I got in mind." So, it goes downhill from there.
Yes, it does.
As you can imagine. Huh? What?
You didn't read it like
Mike Tyson.
I did not read it like Mike Tyson. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Call me forfeit. I like my reputation on the internet. Thank you very much. So, as for the forfeit, I accept.
All right, what else we got?
We are at
Requests?
the 45 mark.
Pit of the Serpent.
Pit of the Serpent. Who wants it?
You want that one?
Sure.
I've read Pit of the
about
Serpent
it
a
now.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your turn.
So set it up for me a little bit.
This was the first published Costigan story. He had done a number of early starts and stops and had been playing around with various combinations of characteristics and names and all this. With Pit of the Serpent, he says he got the formula just right. He figured out, he cracked their code, whatever. Couple of things are missing from this. This actually mentions he hadn't quite nailed down all of the supporting cast yet, but he had Steve right. Mike is missing, the bulldog, but it's a really important first step because it establishes a couple of things. That unreliable narrator voice, which is so important for Costigan. You know, Costigan doesn't know when he's had enough to drink. He doesn't know he can't really dance. You know, he's so dumb that he gets it right kind of without meaning to, you know. It's the whole broken clock is right twice a day kind of analogy. And so this sets up a number of things. In addition to that, the amount of punishments Costigan can take, some of the tall lying things where he doesn't necessarily win, but he doesn't necessarily lose. It's sort of an in the middle sort of a situation that kind of returns him to status quo at the end of the story. Maybe a little bit worse for the wearer, but not dead or unconscious, as you would in some other things. So.
One of the interesting things too about the actual, all these costume stories always build up to a fight as sort of the climax. This isn't a standard boxing match that he's in too. He ends up in an illegal bare knuckle fight in this sort of concrete pit, which shows Costigan is not afraid. For exactly, and as Mike's saying, think about this, this enclosure where there's hardly any room, you can't move around, you're fighting in there, there's nowhere to go, and you're scraping and hitting elbows in here. This enclosed space right here, the ice house, right? With bales of hay in here and ice in here, and guys literally hanging
30,
from the
40
rafters,
guys
all
checking out
surrounded,
the action.
So this is one of the stories that we think might have at least had some sort of basis from some of Howard's personal boxing experience, at least being down here.
Yeah.
So
I'll pick up right in the middle of the climactic fight.
Oh, good.
Again, Slade managed to get me into a corner. You see, he was used to the dimensions, whereas I, accustomed to a regular ring, kept forgetting about the size of the blasted pit. It seemed like with every movement, I bumped my hip or shoulder or scraped my arms against the rough cement of the walls. To date, Slade hadn't a mark to show he'd been in a fight, except for the bruise on his ribs. What with his thumb in and his straight lefts, both my eyes were in a fair way to close. My lips were cut and I was bunged up generally, but was not otherwise badly hurt. I fought my way out of the corner, and the gong found us slugging toe-to-toe in the center of the pit, where I had the pleasure of staggering Bat with the left to his temple. Not an awful lot of action that round, mostly clinching. The third started like a whirlwind. At the tap of the gong, Slade bounded from his end and was in mine before I could get up. He slammed me with a left and a right that shook me clean to my toes and ducked my left. He also ducked a couple of my rights and then rammed a left to my wind, which bent me double. No doubt, this baby could hit. I came up with a left swing to his head, and in a wild mix-up took 4 right and left hooks to land my right to his ribs. Slade grunted, tried to backheel me. Failing which, he lowered his head and butted me in the belly, kicked me on the shin, and would have did more likely, only I halted the proceedings temporarily by swinging an overhand right to the back of his neck, which took the steam out of him for a minute. We clinched, and I never saw a critter short of an octopus, which could appear to have so many arms when clinching. He always managed to not only tie me up, but render me helpless for the time being, but to stamp on my insteps, thumb me in the eye, and pound on the back of my neck with the edge of his hand. Add to this the fact that he frequently shoved me against the wall, and you can get a kind of idea what kind of a beezark I was fighting. My superior weight and bulk did not have no advantage. What was needed was skill and speed, and the fact that Bat was somewhat smaller than me was an advantage to him. Still, I was managing to hand out some punishment. Near the end of that round, Bat had a beautiful black eye and some bruises on his ribs. Then it happened. I had plunged after him, swinging. He sidestepped out of the corner, and the next instant was left jabbing me to death while I was floundering along the wall, trying to get set for a smash. I switched a right to his body, and while I didn't think it landed solid, he staggered. He dropped his hand slightly. I straightened out of my defensive crouch and cocked my right, and simultaneously I realized I had been took. Slade had tricked me. The minute I raised my chin in this careless manner, he beat me to the punch with a right that smashed my head against the wall, laying open to the scalp. Dazed and only partly conscious of what was going on, I rebounded right into Slade, ramming my jaw flush into his left. Zam! At the same instant, I hooked a trip hammer right under his heart, and we hit the floor together. Zowie! I could hear the yelling and cursing as if from a great distance, and the light on the high ceiling above seemed dancing in a thick fog. All I knew was that I had to get back on my feet as quick as I could. 1, 2, 3, 4. The oily bird was counting over the both of us. 5, Bat! You blankety blank, get up! 6, 7, Bat, classic, get your feet under you! 8, 1, hit the gong! What kind of a timekeeper are you? Well, the round ain't over yet, yelled the Dep, seeing as I had begun to get my legs under me. Oh, who's refereeing this? Roared the oily bird, jerking out a 45. 1, hit that gong! Hit it now! 9! What he's doing is the oily bird is the referee who's got a little stake in the outcome of this match, and it wasn't going the way he wanted, and there's a lot of assistance from the timekeeper and the ref against Steve. So that's a bit of the serpent.
Yeah, it's and already we got a bunch of stuff in place there. What? Let's see, where are we at? It's 9:52. Does anybody have any questions, or anybody have any is there anything you need to know about the boxing stories that we ain't told you in the last 10 years? That you haven't heard us bragging on incessantly for the last 5 years for sure.
You gonna do this for another 10 years?
Probably. Yeah. We don't have time for that. You got to go to the buy us a drink at the pavilion, and we'll tell you all about Steve the dog. Steve and Mike. Yeah.
I have a question about the ice house.
Yes.
Okay, was it like just this back area, or was it also that building?
It
or-
actually extended past here. There's a corner piece over there that was where the edge of the dock was, and the train tracks aren't here anymore, but they actually came through at a diagonal, and that's where they would unload and put the ice in. And so the dock was extended, and of course in Howard's day, that wasn't here, that wasn't here. You know, he could very likely look out his window and see the glow from, you know, it's about not even a half a mile, you know. And so yeah, that it was a pretty large operation, and this is sort of like this would have been the back of the vaults, right in here, where this was, and then that was the dock where they all hung out and drank beer and swapped lies and told stories. So
Is that where they fought too?
they probably fought all over this place.
Yeah.
They fought where they could stand.
There's
So
some room.
yeah, wherever there was room. If there was enough room to swing, I'll bet you somebody swung. Definitely. All right, guys. Well, listen, we always appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you guys enjoyed the slightly more fanciful presentation. And
Very welcome.
we appreciate it very much.
We're all headed over to the pavilion, so
Yes.
please, guys, come join us over there.
And we'll take requests there as well.
Absolutely.
Though not in the style of Mike Tyson.